Hi folks, I'm Andrew White, an artist from New Zealand. I created this wonderful painting from Otago Peninsula, and today I'm going to photograph it. To do so, I'm going to do two methods. One method involves professional equipment and professional lighting that you can see here in the studio, and I'll step you through that. That might be of interest to you if you are a professional photographer or a photographer with aspirations to photograph paintings in a studio environment. Also, we're going to photograph the painting using an amateur grade camera, and we're going to do so outside of the studio, and then we're going to compare the results and see where the difference lies. So let's do it. Folks, before we start, let me walk you through my studio just to show you what we have here. This is obviously our meeting room where we meet our clients, and through here is our Infinity Cove studio where the painting is right now ready to be photographed. You might be looking at the studio going, wow, it doesn't have any corners or edges. Well, that's because it doesn't. It's called an Infinity Cove because everything is rounded off. It's particularly hard to show you because, well, that's the whole purpose of it really. It's so that you're photographing into a white hole and you can't see any edges at all. Quite cool, huh? Over here we have our lights. I've got them mounted both on booms on either side of this cove. There's two lights here that we're going to be using to photograph the camera. They're both Allen lights of about 400 or 500 watts, and we've got these lights set to about 5 on the scale because I want to have a really high aperture when I photograph this painting. Now both of these lights are pointed at the wall of the white cove. Now the reason for that is because I want the light to be diffused by bouncing off the side of the walls and then coming back down onto the painting, which is down here on the floor. Now the reason I want that to happen is obviously just to create a more even light flow, and in just a few seconds I'll show you how we measure that light. But what is happening here is because the light is coming at the painting from such a high angle, which is down onto the painting, the light will literally bounce off the painting onto the floor. Now that's quite important because it means you won't get reflections coming back into the lens. So if there's any varnish or anything like that or glossy parts on the painting, then it's not going to show up in our photograph and it's going to be a nice even image of the painting. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. Now let's measure up the painting and see how the light is falling. What I have here on my DSLR camera is a remote control flash trigger which is coupled up there to my lights. Simply by pushing the test button I'm able to make sure that my lights are working. As you can see they are. That was the flash. Now what we want to do now is measure the amount of light that's falling on our painting so that we can shoot manually in the camera and set the settings the same. So to do that I'm using a light meter, and I'm doing a technique called an incidence light meter reading, and what this does is tell me where to set my camera. So I'll just come up a little bit closer and show you how it works. This is a handy little light meter which will tell us how much light is falling on the painting. Just hold it up to the lens so that you can see a good look at it. As you can see, it'll tell me what shutter speed and what aperture to set my camera. Now I've already set the shutter speed at 1/60th of a second on ISO 100. 1/60th of a second is a good sync speed for taking photographs of paintings and even portraits as well of people. It's a good speed. All I have to do is hold my finger on the button. I've got it set to incidence up there in the mode. Hold my finger on the button. As you can see, it goes back to 0, and if I flash the lights, which I will do in the background, it'll give me a figure. Now that figure there is 7.1, which is an F figure, F7.1. Once I do an incident light meter reading of the painting, it'll be an interesting story. Let's do that. Okay, let's meter up the painting just to make sure the light is right and what we need to sync our camera to. We've got F16, F16, F16. So that tells me the light is falling across the painting in the right way and that the whole painting is evenly spread with a good light coverage. Let's put our camera on that, take a picture of it. To photograph the painting I'm using a Nikon DSLR and a 50mm 1.8 prime lens, which will give us a nice sharp result. If you haven't got all that amazing studio equipment, then you'll be wanting to take a photograph of your painting any way you can. Well, the best way to do that is to take it outside on a cloudy day, which we have today, and we're just going to use an ordinary camera that you probably got at home, an ordinary digital camera. Let's see what sort of results we can achieve with this compared to the studio photography. To photograph the painting, all I'm going to do is put my camera on automatic this time. I'm not going to do anything fancy, although I don't want the flash to flash, so if it pops up I'll just hold it down just to make sure that there's no artificial flash going onto the painting, because there's plenty of natural diffused sunlight which has been beautifully diffused through the clouds. The idea is to get down nice and low so that the painting is nice and square, so you don't have to do too much work in Photoshop to straighten it up. Hopefully it'll just be a straight cropping job and then it'll be ready to go. Right, let's go into post. Right, we're doing post-production now, and I'm just going to show you on the screen what I'm going to do. I use Lightroom to edit my professional photos. So let's go through them now. I took 4 photos of the painting. I just want to select which ones that I want. I'll just arrow through them. I really only need one. I'm thinking that's possibly the straightest one, so we'll take that. Okay, I'm just going to crop the image in now just to make sure that I've got enough of it. And I'm going to finish this off in Photoshop actually, just to get it absolutely bang on. Right, now it's just a simple case of exporting the image. I'm going to export it as a high-res TIFF file. Right, and we'll just export this photo into that folder. I'm now just going to open it up with Photoshop and finish off my editing in there. Right, I have the image open in Photoshop now. I'm just going to straighten it up a little bit by using some of the transform functions. First of all, I'm going to have to make a layer from the background. Edit, transform, skew. I'm using the grid. Turn off the grid. Now I'm simply just going to crop right around just to get what I want. Getting as close as I can to the edges of the painting without chipping it, getting into the white space on the side. That looks good. I'm just going to apply a little bit of unsharp mask filter sharpness to it. Flatten it and resave it. As you can see, I didn't have to do any tonal adjustments to the image. It was just the way I needed it, simply because we photographed it in the studio under the right conditions and using the right amount of lighting. Okay, now we're going to edit the photos that came out of the amateur camera to see what it was like. Remember the photos that we took outside? Here we go. First of all, I'm just going to copy them from the camera. Right, there they are. I'm going to open with Photoshop to do my editing. Now, if you don't have Photoshop, then any basic photo editing software will probably work. All we really want to do here is crop the image. Now, most people wouldn't know how to use the advanced features in Photoshop for straightening and the like, so we're just going to crop the image down, get it as much of the painting as we can into the picture. And then we'll save the file as a JPEG somewhere. We're going to use the profile S RGB, meaning standard RGB. That's fine. High possible quality as we can. Let's see how they compare. Okay, let's just conclude what we've done today. We've photographed a painting in the studio using professional equipment, and we've photographed the same painting outside on a cloudy day using an amateur camera. Now, it depends on how you're going to be looking at these photos as to which one is best for what purpose. If you're reviewing this or previewing this on YouTube, you may want to switch it to HD to get a better look at it, to see any sort of difference at all. Most people probably wouldn't do that. They would just leave the YouTube where it is, and there'd be very little difference between the two. Now, where it does count is particularly in print production. The professional grade photo would print up much nicer, and being a TIFF file of high quality and very, very sharp,
using obviously professional grade lenses. The photograph taken outside was probably fine for showing off on the internet and putting on Facebook and the like. So between the two, depending on the application, is where it really counts. If we compare the two, the studio photo now, as you can see, the lighting is nice and balanced and there's absolutely no reflections at all going on in some of the patches of the painting, and it's at the right balance. If we look at the amateur grade photo now, it's a little bit overexposed for my liking. I would probably dampen it down a little bit, bring it back in Photoshop. It does have some shiny patches here and there where it's picked up the light from different directions, but overall it's a pretty good representation of the painting as well. So there you go. I hope you've enjoyed that today. I'm Andrew White from New Zealand. Make sure that you like my channel, you subscribe to my channel and follow my work in the future. Thanks for visiting. Bye for now.